Ba-da-dum-bum. What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Happy Sunday. Welcome back on this Sunday. We're here with another episode of Chill to Action. As usual, you know me. It's your girl, Danie Joy, right here with my ever so wonderful co-host, my favorite work husband, Mr. Paul Denuzio.
That's me. What's up, everybody? Glad to be here on this fine Sunday. How's everybody doing? I expected them to talk to me in a minute. I think it's just, we're all doing good, right?
That's how it works, right? The chat responds.
Exactly.
And back again, one of our favorite co-hosts for this episode, Mr. Billy Belford.
I don't care how you're doing. I'm here for the champ. The champ
is here.
The champ is here.
The champ is here.
That's right. We heard it right. We are here on this very special episode of Chill to Action with the one, the only, the shark, the primetime, Mr. Paul Oyama.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, it's been a while, a long time coming. Had this mentioned to me before, and yeah, I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us on this Sunday, Paul. On this early time, we're here a little bit earlier than usual, so thank you for
even earlier for me, really. I mean,
that's right. That's what we did. We're moving around for some champs up in here. We're not mad at that.
He has eyes, no sunglasses, no shades.
Hey, any real fans saw me in Bibiani's entrance against Roca, so they all know what I look like without sunglasses before I debuted. So, real fans.
We do. That's right. Fair enough.
There's like the fun little Easter eggs of the Schmodown where you see like it's kind of like old wrestlers, like up and coming wrestlers will end up being like a cop on like in a like before they're a wrestler, or they'll be like CM Punk famously was like a in one of John Cena's entrances at WrestleMania before anybody knew who he was. Like that's kind of like this. It's like you and Brandon Hanna and like a few other people like were in the Schmodown before people knew they were in the Schmodown.
Oh yeah.
What's up, Brian?
Yeah. Well, as usual, we're gonna get to our very first question on Chill to Action. Paul, why Schmodown? What got you into the Schmodown? How did you get involved?
Oh, man, it is such a long and windy road. And I've sort of told the story on the rundown before. But so I've been listening to the Schmoes for, I think, coming up on 8-ish years now. It's been kind of a really long time. I think I found them through their last Airbender movie review, which I was pissed about the movie at the time, and I needed some commiseration. So from there, I started listening to the Schmoes podcast and through Toad Hop and all of that stuff. And then when it premiered live on the podcast, it was just another Schmoes No Show. And it wasn't necessarily anything that I knew was going to be special at the time. And then it sort of grew and grew and grew. I kept watching, obviously. Like, I love movies, and I think it's such a great outlet for that kind of thing. And I just became a huge fan of the Schmodown. And then time passed, and then the sort of the fan leagues became something that I became aware of, and then I became involved in them, and things grew from there, really. And I was noticed through my play there. I went to some tapings, and then before I knew it, I was debuting in a match. It was kind of happened a lot faster than people might expect.
Very cool. Yeah. So a lot of us know each other from the Schmodown. So Paul and I, Denuzio and I, have actually known you for quite some time within the Schmodown ranks. We were all in that really fun, big Action Army Facebook chat for a long time that was super active during there. So would you
Action Army 1.0 really before we kind of became what it is today? It was like the pre-Action Army in a way.
We weren't even an army, we were just like a battalion or whatever you want to call it.
It was like the Shadow Army. It was like nobody really knew who was in it or who was part of it, and
quietly building.
Yeah, you were pretty vocal inside of that chat, especially when it comes to movies, just in general. You've always been someone who seems like they're really into movies. I've seen your letterbox before, my dude. You watched movies like crazy. Yeah. So, would you still consider yourself a part of the Action Army?
I think it's just become a different sort of thing now. It's kind of hard to be that from inside. I mean, I've been watching their show for a few years now at this point. Like, it's been quite a while. Like, I was as a lot of longtime sort of fans know, I was active in those chats like way back when there was not nearly as many people watching, when that was like not really as much of a thing. But it's become different now. But I think I'll always have sort of a fondness for that fandom and sort of what that small community brought me at the time, and sort of what it help build relationships with people like you two that I've now met both of you. I've actually met all three of you guys in person at this point now.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a cool way to build a community is through this sort of mutual shared affection for like a group of performers. I think that's a great thing.
Absolutely, become a real family that way. Even like the old school versus the new school. I still love the fact that I piss you off on Letterboxd and you let me.
Scream 4, Paul. Why? No.
Some of my favorite comments are talking and ripping something like, "How did you like this?"
Oh yeah, between D'Annunzio and Jarvie, I'm like, what? You like this movie? The fact that I had an action movie anatomy of Pacific.
But then you
Rim.
realize, wait, Ed Harris is in it for 2 minutes, so D'Annunzio is just in from the get go.
All gets to me. I love it.
I'm waiting for the day that there's like the most obscure Ed Harris question in the Schmodown, and kind of like that Angelina Jolie 5-pointer that everyone was talking about with like. I'm waiting for the obscure Ed Harris question that nobody knows, but D'Annunzio's like, that was an easy question, guys.
That's a 5-pointer? Come on.
Who missed that? Yeah.
That was like a 1-pointer. Come on, guys. It's Ed.
Definitely. That's me. I've already told Ben and Drew, I've already said if they ever get an Ed Harris slice that I have to actually come in and help them.
Oh, man. Present it every time.
Boom, 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 boom.
On the wheel.
I mean, Paul's been getting that Schmobot and super chats for the Ed Harris wheel slice. He's probably spent enough money that he could have just sponsored a Harris wheel slice at this point.
That's true. Already questions for other things.
Speaking of wheel slices, so you know they're talking about changing up the wheel slices next season. What's a wheel slice that you would like to see that isn't currently a wheel slice?
I mean, there's so many. I think a personal one for me, it's which people might not expect is, I guess you might expect it if you saw my outfit at New York Live event, but I would love a Hepburn slice with maybe both Catherine and Audrey Hepburn. I think would be a cool way to celebrate sort of women in film and classic film, and also just a long span, like two very long spanning and important careers that I think are a little left of center of the stuff that generally gets asked about. And no, Robert, I would not like a Percy Jackson movie's wheel slice. Those movies did not happen. Those movies did not happen. The Earth King has invited you to Lake Laogai. That's all I have to say about that.
I tend to agree with you on that one. I wish they were a little better. A lot better.
I mean, and also I think some sort of anime representation. I think that like sort of a Studio Ghibli slice would be something that I would have great fondness for, and I think would be a cool sort of thing that I don't think you have to use all the time. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Basically.
Tony, Kaiju has not been in fandom for like over a year, so let's just put that one to bed. But anyway.
You know what, Paul? It's been really exciting watching you in your rookie year. I can't believe that for a second it slips my brain that this is your rookie year, and you've already done what some people who've been in the league for a long time haven't been able to do. You've got a belt, and you defended the belt. So it's been pretty exciting to see you in this rookie year. Are there any rookies that are coming up from the fan leagues that you're worried about?
No, because Robert's not playing in regular movies.
Just how
I think I'm sure at this point all the Intergeekdom players know. Dread it, run from it. Robert Parker still arrives. Like he will be there. He will be a factor, and I think everyone will find that out soon enough. But as of my knowledge, I don't think that there's any singles or teams competitors from the fan leagues that will be debuting, at least to my knowledge. And I might be playing Intergeekdom this year. I'm not totally sure about that. That's sort of a possibility. I don't know if you guys saw Christian posted like a list that he soon took down, but it was a list of all the eligible draft players, and I was eligible as an Intergeekdom player. And I think maybe that's a hint of potentially something to come. It's not something that I'm promising or guaranteeing. I'm not saying I'm going to take the Intergeekdom belt like some singles competitors have claimed before and then never debuted, but it's a possibility. So we'll see.
It's funny you mentioned. I know Ben Bateman is one of those who said he could do it, but then he decided he didn't want to hate watch things, and so it would just
that would be required. I'll say that much.
A lot of it is also, I think it's Ben's old study method. Like he would have done, probably would have done Intergeekdom the way he used to study, and now with his new study method, he doesn't. He only wants to watch things that he likes. Like he's not going to watch. Like you said, like they always say, Green Lantern, 5 times in one day or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
He's not going to watch, all the Star Wars 15 times so that he can make that a strength. So, what was the biggest change you felt like coming into the league from the fan leagues? Like what, because people always compare the fan leagues to the big leagues, I guess you could say. What was the biggest like change or the biggest surprising thing?
I think the approach is just very different. It's a lot of widening and less narrowing. I think in the fan leagues, you're allowed to choose strengths based on almost any parameters, as long as there's at least 6 movies in there and that they've been theatrically released. So it's like I've used and had stuff used against me that would never be a slice in the Schmodown. And I think there's like an aspect of fun to it too, but also the Schmodown's a little more regulated. So it's a little more regimented. It's like there's only certain things you really have to worry about. And there's a lot of movies that will never be asked in the Schmodown that have been asked in the fan league. It's a different shade, I think, of the game. And it's really interesting. Also, it's like there's a lot more plot related questions and like stuff you have to have seen the movie to know in the fan leagues. That's also because it's not about, they're not worried about creating a product for people to be able to digest and to be entertaining. It's about like having fun in a different sort of trivia sense. So it's a different muscle almost of your brain that's working. So I definitely had to rewire the way that I look at movies and the way that I study and prepare. Because in the fan leagues, it's like, someone will use the strength of Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's like, it's just about Nightmare on Elm Street. And I have to focus so specifically on that. Whereas in the Schmodown, it's obviously like, there are, niche categories, but for the most part, everything is pretty, wide and general. And it's just sort of that focusing, narrowing versus the widening that I think is just a big change.
That makes sense. Have you, since you have that new experience versus you and Chance, for example, did come out of those fan leagues. Yeah. Robert Parker has not been in the Schmodown yet. Do you have any advice for him coming in? Because he's kind of came on and talked big about how like a fan would never, someone in the fan league would never miss the questions like that Kevin Spence did, for example. So do you have any advice for how what to do to make that step and make it a successful step?
I think Robert understands pretty well. I think it's also a thing where nothing I really say can really help as much as just being there. It's just a different feeling when you're at the studio or on a live stage. Answering questions, it's much different than just being in your bedroom or and answering to your laptop. That's just, again, it's a similar sort of thing I was talking about the fan leagues. It's a different muscle that you have to engage. And it's something you can't really prepare for. You just have to adapt when it happens. And yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, your debut match in the Schmodown was against one of the league's most loved players, Kevin Meyer, and you have a little bit of a bad reputation for a little while. Are you worried about your reputation following you into this next season?
Not really. I think that, I guess in some aspects, yes. I think in some ways, though, it's been sort of a reckoning for me, and I think I've sort of dealt with that as much as I could, I think, and talking to people and leveling with them about sort of what I'm really about and being able to understand what that kind of thing is. I mean, I definitely think that some people will be hesitant to draft me or like will not necessarily want to pair me with certain things. But I think also that's partially just a character thing too. Like there's certain managers that probably just won't take specific players because they don't think that the pieces fit for them. But I think that in terms of me and my reputation, I think that's sort of changing a little bit. And I don't think it'll affect me in sort of any meaningful way. But I could be wrong. You never know.
Well, it's an interesting point you bring up. I mean, I know definitely. I mean, it was definitely documented at one point that some issues were going on, but I think that you've definitely taken some steps. I mean, we'll get to spectacular, but like your after match interview, I know went a long way with everybody as far as it just seemed to humanize you more than people got to finally know the real you. Whereas before you were kind of like this. Like if you didn't know you come off kind of like this almost not emotionless, but like this very stoic, like this.
I mean, I think that was the idea. It didn't necessarily work, I think, as well as that it was intended to.
Right.
But I do think that there's something to be said about sort of that being the construction of what loosely what the character was supposed to be.
Well, that's true because I think people have had problems with character versus people all throughout the Schmodown because everybody's so interactive community that sometimes.
And also, it's like just in a physical and geographic sense, I'm so like detached from the stuff that it's way harder to like just talk to someone man to man casually. Like I really am only there for matches. And it's not like I'm just hanging out. Like I was living in LA for 6 months last year before I debuted. And like, if I was playing at that point, I think things might've been a little different. I think people might've been able to see me as a person more. But you know, it's a learning curve. You know, it's like breaking in a new baseball glove. Like you'll get used to it to some degree eventually. And if you know, there's certain levels that it won't get to, and that's okay too.
Well, I know you definitely made some ground with that because I know I've heard some people like. So I know that you had issues with came out and said that when you reached out to them and they definitely made some bridges were built, so to speak, and that they
I think that's still being worked on. I think and a lot of the stuff really is like just behavior moving forward. It's not something that you can just fix like that. It's just as you grow and grow and grow, and as I try to sort of be a better version of myself, I think that things will change, and that's kind of just the natural progression of human relationships, which sounds a little haughty and broad, but I think that it's true because like that's really ultimately what this is, just a community of people coming together for a specific goal. And I think once we become more comfortable with each other on a lot of levels, then it's easier to integrate that into the actual game itself. So
quick, something quicker and happier. Let's go this right from the chat. What's your favorite non-title match, and why is it you beating the
No comment, although that was an incredible match. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I have fond memories of that match. Tell you what, it's a lot better than another recent match that I played, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's out of my mind.
You know.
So you're a rookie. You joined the dungeon with a fellow rookie, Kevin Smets. Was that like always the plan with Christian, or were there other options or that were discussed?
Sort of. I think that me and Kevin had sort of become friends just because of his sort of brief tenure in the fan leagues. His first match was against my old partner, so it's like a lot of stuff sort of confluence of events, and we met at tapings and stuff, and I just grew to have a fondness for him and Kaiser sort of on a personal level, and then we just tried to sort of figure out if it would work and reverse engineer the whole thing. And I think it worked out pretty well for all of us involved. That's sort of my biggest worry about losing a spectacular is just that, I don't know if we're going to be together. I think the odds are pretty stacked in our favor in terms of, I don't think that our faction it'll definitely not be whole again, I think. Mm-hmm. And that's a real bummer, but I think those guys are friends that I've made that I would consider friends for life. And I think that alone makes the season worth it. Like spectacular, whatever be damned. Like meeting Kevin, John, and Eric, I think has changed my life for the better in a lot of ways that I think people might not realize. But yeah, those are just great people, and I'm so glad that I got to spend at least this time with them in that capacity.
Very sweet.
Very sweet. Very sweet. Now, speaking of spectacular. Let's get into it a little bit. Now we can talk about spectacular. Obviously, it wasn't your best night.
Many would say my worst night. In fact,
I'm being nicer. I get it. I would say. I talked to you about it afterwards, and I came up and mentioned it. But now that we're like 2 weeks or so out, how do you feel about it now? Like hindsight, I know blood can be hot that night, and maybe just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Given some reflection now, what do you think about it? And like what you said afterwards, like how do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't really want to get too into the super personal stuff. I was going through a lot in the 2 weeks sort of leading up to the match, and I think that took a lot out of me. And I think there was sort of a misunderstanding from a lot of people. I think in my post match, I wasn't saying that I didn't love the Shimoda anymore. I think the thing is, what was the stuff that was happening to me in my personal life was indirectly related to the Shimodan, so it didn't feel like the Shimodan was an escape from it. It almost felt like I was burying myself deeper and deeper in sort of the situation that I was in. And that's really what took a lot out of me. I think it's what made that match so exhausting, and it's just why that, not just the result, but just the entire night. It was a really bad night, and I think for a lot of reasons, and I think that. The personal stuff is not an excuse for how I played. I played poorly, and that just happens sometimes. But I do think that stuff all converging onto one moment, I think, really made it tough. And I'm just so appreciative that I had a support system that I think helped me get through it. But yeah, it was a really rough night. And it's, the stuff is still sort of affecting me to this day. Not the match necessarily, but a lot of the outside stuff. And, but I've sort of, I've been working my way towards getting better at that stuff. And I'm excited to play the next season and sort of jump back into it and hopefully be my sort of old self again.
Yeah, and you were up against one of the best strategic players in the Schmodown. So there are plenty of times where we would look over and see Ben just kind of mouthing something to you. So Ben is really good at getting into people's heads. So I can definitely.
I mean, to be honest, that stuff didn't really bother or affect me. I just sometimes you just don't know the questions and your mind's not in the game. And I think that to be like, oh man, like I would have won if Ben wasn't, he wasn't even really saying that much to me. The one thing was like when he did the whole thing about the spin and he was saying that it wasn't on what it like, was kind of annoying, I guess. But I think that in general, like, I don't think my play was really affected by the little stuff here and there that he tries to do. So I don't know.
Strong words from Robert.
I think we're just one of those, whatever could go wrong did go wrong as far as like just the questions. Like, it happens to everybody, like no one's gonna. Everyone has those moments where they, in a category that they, unless it's a category that they just have, Alex Damon in Star Wars or something like that. Like, there's a chance you're gonna get 4 questions you're just not gonna know, and it happens.
And the worst part about that is one question I definitely did know, and I think that is an example of me getting in my own head. And The Third Man is like one of my favorite movies. Like it's an amazing movie, and that's a case where I think I was just in my head so much that I wasn't thinking about the movie, and I just thought to myself, I was like, oh, the director Carol Reed is British, like that is a famous British movie, and I wasn't really thinking about the hospital, and there's a lot of stuff with that, and a lot of the information is just a little off. I think if you know classics really well, the stuff that I was answering was not just random guesses. I guess I might as well go ahead and address this. There was a lot of talk about me throwing the match, particularly that round, which, like, aside from just the conceit of that being ridiculous, like, if you saw the way that I was after the match, do you really think I would have wanted to feel like that? But also, it's like the Lauren Bacall Humphrey Bogart thing. The Big Sleep is their second movie together. I literally had the release dates switched in my head. Again, The Third Man thing, it's made in London by a British filmmaker. That's why I was like, oh, it's London. Thinking back on it, obviously Vienna. And then The Miracle on 34th Street, and the remake, the store is Target. And I think it's not some random sort of thing.
Right.
Really, the last one was the only one I had no idea, which is... but at that point, I was really adopting a strategy of I knew Ben didn't know those answers either. And I think that at that point, going to multiple choice, really all that does is maybe it helps me maybe get it, but I think it also helps him a lot. And I think at that point, I was just trying to keep the score as low as possible and hope that he spun something he didn't know and make it sort of a rock fight, but it didn't work out.
That's true.
Yeah, I think the only thing is if you do the multiple choice, it might have spurred something in your head of like, oh wait, it is this,
But the thing is, I was the first two answers I was confident in when I answered them. It was only afterwards that I realized, to have and have not. I literally was like in my head, I was like, yes, to have Big Sleep 1944, to have and have not 1946, and it's just the opposite, and that's just a thing where I knew that the options were going to be the Big Sleep, to have and have not, Key Largo. Like that wasn't really helped me, but I mean, maybe The Third Man would have calmed me down a little bit, but at that point I was just kind of shooting from the hip, and maybe my head wasn't in the game necessarily as much as it needed to be. But it's ultimately my information was not correct, and that it is what it is. And then he spins Julia Roberts and gets those Julia Roberts questions, so it happens.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned there was talk about you throwing the game, which I would find ridiculous. But another thought I wanted to bring up that I've heard a little bit, and I want to give you a chance to address it, is the idea of your studio tapings versus your live events and how that affects you. Because, I mean, obviously Spectacular wasn't your best night. You had the live match in New York, which also wasn't, I mean, you won the match and you won it fairly squarely now, but it wasn't also, I don't think, your best match either as well. So was it something about live matches did it get to you a little bit? Was it harder to concentrate?
I don't think so. Like I've performed in front of big crowds in sporting events and stuff like that before. I don't think that aspect of it bothers me, but then maybe it does. Maybe it does, and I don't really realize it. In New York, really, the 3 round 5 questions that I missed, I I mean, the first one, it was just a name flub, really. I got the Corey's confused, but like, I don't care if you ask me that American Beauty question, like sitting at home when I'm like totally relaxed. I just don't know that. I didn't know that at the time, and the Coyote Ugly one, I just didn't know the actress. So I think that that's sort of a misnomer. I think that something like the Showdown, where the sample size is so small, it's really hard to get real usable data from it. So I think that using that information is a little limiting. But maybe it is. There is like a little aspect of it where I would have been a little more calm. I would have thought more about it. Maybe I would have respun in round 2. Maybe left classics on the board for Ben to potentially spin, because I think if he got the questions as we saw, that would have been really rough for him too. But I mean, again, I think that I'm open to that potentially being an aspect of the performance. But I think it's not like I was really nervous out there, and like that stuff wasn't bothering me. A lot of it was just not knowing the questions and just not being in the right headspace to execute.
Well, I think like it's people just look at it and you're 5-0 in the studio, you're 1-1 now, or 6-0 in the studio and 1-1. What are we? Well, 5-0 in the studio, 1-1 in live events, and they're like, oh, and your one win, people look like.
I mean, the thing is, it's just funny if the fan doesn't yell out the answer, then I TKO Jeff Snyder at a live event, and then everyone's like, "Oh man, like, what a performance!" But now that I mean, again, like, and the questions came and I didn't know them, but it's like it's funny how that little bit of context changes things so drastically.
True.
Like just to use an example, Rachel Cushing got TKO'd by Sam Levine in a title match, but I think Sam's has missed all of his round 5 questions before, and I think if Rachel answers one more question, maybe he misses them all, and it's a totally different story. So I think it's a lot of it is sort of how you frame the match and what information you choose and do not choose to include in your analysis when you're breaking that stuff down. But I mean, it's a possibility. That's totally possible.
Also, you're in good company now with people saying ridiculous things like you threw the match because people said good like that. Spinner's Choice was rigged in Houston, and people said that Brooke was going to retire and all this stuff. So, wild speculation puts you in good company.
I mean, and theories will run rampant, and people will have their opinions, and they're well within their right to have them. But I just wanted to sort of address that, just because. I mean, I also think that's lame because that takes away from Ben's win to be like, I threw the match, he didn't win the match, because Ben played well both matches that day and he earned it. And I think to say that I threw it really is not giving him the credit that he deserves for his road to the title.
And he definitely worked his ass off. We know that. We watched that.
Absolutely.
So I could. There we go. Well, knowing it was a rough time for you makes the time you spent with us after the match even more special because we all care. That's true.
I think that also helped. I think just spending time with people and making that human connection, because I think just before the match I was trying to focus and that didn't necessarily work out. But I think it was a good time to sort of let myself relax a little bit. I think.
Well, what I love about that, I want to put this out there, being Evan, having been there. One of the most fascinating things about the after event at the bar was watching you, Brendan Meyer, and Chandru like sit in a circle drinking beers. And you talk Schmodown for like 2 hours. Just like
I mean,
it was great. I love it.
Like Brendan is one of my great friends in the Schmodown, and we talk about the Schmodown constantly. Like we'll just randomly start texting or talking in person just about matches that have happened or stuff that will happen and this, that, and the third. And I think that's a passion for the game that I think that we all share, and I think that's kind of what draws us together. And we had a great conversation with Chandru, who I think is going to have a big season next year. But I think it was a great moment for me to be around people who are supportive and also who understand sort of where what the game does to you and how it can sort of affect you. I think more than you might even realize.
Yeah, with the next season coming up and with the draft coming up and you not being completely protected under Kaiser, if you couldn't be with Kaiser, is there any manager that you specifically would prefer to be with?
I mean, I don't know if I should say that, to be honest. I think just I don't want it to put off the message of whoever drafts me. I don't want to be with you as much as I want to be with other people or blah blah blah. Like I think that a lot of the managers have sort of their different appeals. I'll just say, if you know me, I think you know which managers besides Kaiser would appeal to me personally. I'll just leave it at that.
It's Winston. I know it's Winston.
Five Club for life. Here we go.
No comment on either one of those.
Fair enough. Well, okay, you want to answer the manager question, which I get. But let's see, is there anybody else out there? If you like, loose cannons are most likely maybe not going to stick together. Is there anybody out there that you would like to work with as a tag team think would fit you? Since it's out of your control.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to be paired with Zipper again too, if possible. I mean, I think almost all the great players who are unattached, I would love to be a teammate with. I think it would be silly to be like, I don't want to be with this great player. But I mean, I think Paul Preston would be a great teammate for me. I think besides just having a truly immaculate first name, like really Paul Preston is really one of the best people and players out there. I think being with Lon would be really fun. I think what they would do character-wise, that would be fun. And also he just knows so much. And I think that that'd be incredibly exciting for me. I don't know who wouldn't want to be with Tom, just because, it's Tom and he's such an interesting fellow, along with having like the best round and one accuracy in the history of the entire Schmoedown, I think. So I think those are three kind of big ones. But I mean, really, there's not a good player that I wouldn't want to be with. Like, there are so many possibilities, and I'm just excited. I think like whatever happens, it'll be a really fun season. It'll be fun.
It's going to be a new era.
Woo! Caleb seems to think that you and Lon Harris would be perfect, and I could definitely see that working out. If Lon needs a little more, I think, gameplay. He's got the knowledge; just needs a little more gameplay.
Yeah, I do think there's a world where sort of before I became sort of a heel and everything, like if I was his partner a year ago or so, that me being my age, they could even have set me up as sort of his acolyte, sort of a student, like a film school student, if you will, which I literally was at the time. So I think maybe there's something they could play with that. But I do think that Lon is sort of has so much information that I think I would be able to sort of refine that in a way. But we'll see. I mean, those are three I would be excited about. Obviously, I'd be stoked to be back with Zipper, but like a lot of possibilities.
You know what, Paul, you and Lon together reminds me of Above the Line. Like that's the kind of like that's.
I don't know if I can quite grow like that glorious beard that they both had going on, but I will do my best. No, that would be a lot of fun.
You can wear a fake beard.
yeah, I probably. Oh man, that'd be a rough look.
At least you can make your hair go a little crazy or something. A little bit
exactly.
You professor kind of got on, but oh, that's good.
If that scene happens, make sure you watch Remember the Titans. I'm just saying.
I have seen Remember the Titans 30 plus times, so I think we would be just fine. Yeah, I think it would be just fine.
Well, that's actually brings me up a question. Is there any, like, I know a couple of players I've talked to, I haven't mentioned this with you, they all kind of waiting for that one question to be asked on the Schmoedown that you're like, yes, I'm waiting to answer this one.
Yeah. I don't know if I really want to say specifically. There are dozens and dozens of questions where I'm like, man, if that ever got asked, I would be just so excited. And there's been questions that have been asked before that I've been stoked about, but it's like, that's the thing I think I want to be a little coy about. But I think almost anything about any of my favorite movies, I would be excited. It doesn't matter if it's just like the lead character or something. But I think everyone would love a plot, like a deep plot question, 5-pointer about a movie they love, just because it would be such a fortuitous sort of confluence of events.
So you're clearly a fan of Action Movie Anatomy. Has there ever been a question in the Schmoedown that you got because of Action Movie Anatomy? Because there's a lot of them that I've got only because I watched Action Movie Anatomy.
I think with the way that I've been preparing for the league and everything, it's hard to know where that knowledge starts and where the next knowledge ends. You know what I mean? Like, right. I think it's definitely possible. There are probably like actor questions that before that episode of the show I didn't know, but I think maybe I would just already know by now. I'm not really sure. There's nothing that really comes to mind where it's like, oh man, I'm so lucky that they asked this specific question just because I remember this episode, blah, blah, blah. Like not that I can think of necessarily off the top of my head.
Okay.
Fair enough. Another thing I talked to, I remember talking to Ben about it. I'm curious to what your response would be. The Expo. It was a great event. It was a great event.
Yeah.
But I know Ben had said at one point that he left a little earlier. He said he said on one of the streams somewhere that he kind of was feeling a little low energy wise, and he had to perform later on. Did that take anything away from you having to not having to, but it was an enjoyable time, I'm sure, but like just being out there for so long beforehand, does that take anything away from your preparation that day or take
it really, I mean, it was just one of those things where I feel like at the expo I was
almost
in the Schmodown mode, and then I had to wait like 7 hours till I played my match. So I think just getting up energy wise for that and then having to sort of ride it out, maybe, but I don't think that in terms of actual play that really mattered that much. But it was like a weird thing to be like, oh, I'm in Schmodown mode, but I have to wait 7 to 8 hours before I actually play my match.
Right.
Really, the thing that was just terrible for me was just not knowing who I was going to play like for such a long time, and basically spending a lot of time preparing to potentially play Bibiani, and then that just being totally wasted. So it's like, you know, it is what it is.
Well, we all had our picks. Did you have a pick who you thought you were going to face?
No, I think that's a fool's errand, because I think then if the other person wins, then that takes so much out of you that I think it puts you in a bad place, and you don't want to be thinking that way. So I was basically 50-50 preparing for both people. And then when I saw the match happen as it did, some things had to be changed. It's funny, Classics was not originally what I was going to have on the wheel, and I do wonder if I should have gone with something else, something that I did more directly prepare for. But no, it just not knowing was the part that kind of killed me at the time.
Makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. Everybody in the chat here seemed to want to have the Paul Preston, Paul Oyama team. They were trying to find good names for you. Dot Paul, a true underdog story. Just the Paul
squared.
Paul squared. I like that. Paul the right moves. I kind of like that one.
Get on it.
Got some cruise in there. Yeah.
My own personal favorite, Paul's actions. That's what I call this show at the time.
Oh Lord.
True.
Or the good, the bad, the Paulie.
How do you feel about protein shakes? That's the question.
I drink one every morning, so I think that might work out. You know,
well.
I don't snort the powder like the powder cake does, but I take a different approach and I consume it a little more naturally, I suppose.
That is true. The expo, we did get the great hamburgers from McDonald's.
Yes, Kaiser went and bought a lot of hamburgers as a great bit.
It was hilarious.
It was good because I didn't get a chance to eat. I had gotten. It's kind of known now. The night before, I had a little bit to drink that night.
Oh, you drink? No. No.
When Kim's not there.
But it was good that he had burgers there. It was nice for me to soak up the next day. So.
I'm sure.
Yes, totally. So that was just a little bit for me. Okay. But you know what? It is time. It is time now. We're gonna shift our little show here to do what we call this or that. A segment we do every week. If you guys are first-time viewers, I will give Paul Oyama, not me, obviously, 2 options, and he was
like this, like the old Schmo's Choice for my Schmo's no heads out there.
There you go,
the classic Schmo's Choice.
Absolutely,
classic JTE segment on the
very
the podcast.
Very true.
Well, it's JTE of this show, so yeah.
Oh man, a little more hair, just on the lip.
I'm also a little more graceful. I don't really fall off scooters too often, but that's
not yet.
Not yet, anyway. I just said that. I'm going to go head over here. So we have our first question, which we always ask every time. It's the famous one. We want to know. We're starting to tabulate these. We're going to have these at the end of the year. I'm going to put them all together and see where we actually stand. But are you Team Ghai or Team Trader?
You know, as of this month, I don't know if I can support Bateman in that way. You know, I'm happy for his title, but I think I have to be Team Ghai for the purposes of this question and this moment. I think it's pretty definitive.
And for these specific people right here also. We're all Team Ghai.
Oh, that had nothing to do with my decision at all.
Smart. You're smart. You're loyal. You're good. That's good to go.
Loyal.
You're loyal. Smart. Exactly. Okay. How about this? The Network. Or, I'm sorry, not The Network. Network or The Graduate?
Network. That Network is my favorite movie, so it's Network.
I kind of thought so. I figured I'd throw that out there, though. Okay. Big screen.
Winning an Oscar.
Yeah, it's very much so. Big screen or not so big screen? Like as in like a big screen movie, or watching things in your home theater now?
Definitely in the theater. I would watch everything in the theater if I could. In LA, while I was there for the Schmodown, I went to the theater 4 times. So let's say I like going to the movies.
I'm fully on board.
I watched Waves,
Okay.
The Lighthouse, Marriage Story, and Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Nice.
I saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire with Brendan. That movie is incredible. I really liked all of the movies I saw. I think they were all pretty fantastic.
Cool.
I like that. Okay, here's one. Pineapple. Is it just fruit or a pizza topping?
Well, I'm okay with it as a pizza topping as long as you don't call it Hawaiian pizza, because that's not people in Hawaii don't eat Hawaiian pizza. So just stop with the name. There's this Hawaii comedian who did this video bit where he just threw pineapples at things and said Hawaiian, like it's a trash can and like a piece of paper, and that's what it feels like. If it's got pineapple, it's called Hawaiian. No,
it's like if you put avocado on anything, it's California.
Basically, yeah. But it's like even the branding is even stronger because because we can't do anything about it. We're so far away. We have to send some angry letters or something. I don't know, but
that's all there is in Hawaii, right? Is like surfing and pineapples. That's it. There's nothing.
You actually surf on pineapples. I don't know if you know that. They're pretty rough, but you learn to get used to it after a while.
Surfing on pineapples.
Art says it was invented in Canada. I did not know.
Well, they do use Canadian bacon, so that makes a lot more sense than in Hawaii, where we do not consume fake bacon products.
Fair enough.
Now officially Canadian pizza.
Yeah, probably shouldn't rename it.
Now I gotta ask you one: when you do your little shtick in the Schmodown, you do your little digital watch or analog watch? Which one works better in that case?
Analog. It's got to be analog. I think a digital. It's like, man, we get you're young, but you're looking even worse. It's like you got you can't even read a clock. It's like, come on, kid. You probably can't even write cursive. It's like, what are we doing here? So it's got to be analog. Also, just analog watches just look a million times better, and they probably always will. And just numbers. Like that's, I don't know. Numbers aren't that cool. Sorry, Frank.
Wow, shots fired on Frank. We'll take it. If he's watching Frank, you probably deserve that though. So,
after those rankings he put out, definitely deserves it.
Something's going on with Frank, but that's all right. Okay, here's the one for me. Actually, my personal one, because I love talking movies and stuff with you. Denis Villeneuve or Alfonso Cuarón.
Ooh,
that's a good one.
There's an iconic sort of moment in an action movie anatomy history where during the Children of Men episode, the infamous baby drying incident. And that movie, I think I love more than anything that Denis has done, but I think I would say Denis overall. I think everything that I've seen from him, I love. And I will watch Prisoners one day.
Oh, you haven't seen Prisoners yet?
No, it's the one I haven't seen. I've seen Incendies and Polytechnique, but not Prisoners for some reason. I don't know. Whatever it is.
I was gonna say that's a great action movie anatomy episode.
I couldn't watch. I was like, oh, I'll watch this soon, and then it still hasn't happened. So it'll happen soon.
I was actually just to bring that up, just to take a sidebar there. The drying baby. I mentioned that to Andrew during. I was talking about that when we were there at the house, and I mentioned that. Do you remember that? He's like, I kind of remember that. Now he had forgotten. He kind of brought back. Yeah, that's right. He was there. So
it's hilarious. Yeah,
that's so good.
For those, actually, no, I won't spoil. If you want to watch, if you want to learn about it, go watch the Children of Men.
Yes.
Action movie anatomy episode.
That's true. That sometimes Drew just reads things from the chat verbatim. Now we're going to start doing the whole the Anchorman thing where we just start writing stuff in the chat, hoping that whatever it is.
Exactly.
Okay, I agree with Villeneuve myself. Just to throw that out there, he's my favorite current director, and I can't wait to see what he does with Dune. So looking forward to that. Man. Okay, speaking of the Terminator franchise or the Alien franchise,
definitely Alien for me. I think I loved Alien more than any of the Terminator movies, and I think Aliens is about on par with Terminator and T2 for me. And I don't hate Alien 3, actually. I think it's pretty interesting.
It's venture.
I kind of like Prometheus. Covenant was very frustrating for me, but I think a lot of the post T2, the Terminator just kind of has lost me post T2. So, I'm just kind of out on Terminator at this point. I didn't even see Dark Fate, so that tells you anything.
was okay. It was okay. Just kind of more of like it's another soft reboot of Terminator 1, to be honest with you. It's just kind of.
I did want to see it because I love Mackenzie Davis, but it didn't pull me in the way that I think an Alien movie probably still would, even though I've been burned before by that. So
I'll also throw it out there. I actually love Prometheus. I'm frustrated with Covenant too, because it seemed like Covenant was Ridley Scott taking a step back from his commitment when he had started with Prometheus to kind of.
It also just like, man, it really, if you think about it too much, it just ruins Alien. So it's really annoying. But anyway, enough about Alien Covenant.
We can talk about this stuff for hours as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is something I haven't asked yet.
We're not in the Action Army chat.
No, we're not.
Sure. Okay, we had the Anarchy this year. I know we have the Nuke next year. I know we obviously haven't done the Nuke yet, but what's your thoughts? Anarchy versus the Nuke.
I think the Nuke is just more fun because it's more holistic. It's not just like 20 different people were changed around a little bit. Anarchy though it sort of did it first. So I think that in that way, it does set that apart. But I think that the Nuke I think is a better version of that. I think it's made it like sports in a way that I love. As a massive sports fan, I think the draft is such an exciting and cool thing. So I think I would go with that a little bit. Plus, I wasn't even in Anarchy, so who cares about it? Did it even really happen? We don't know.
Well, I think a really interesting thing with the Nuke is it's going to put stakes to matches that in previous seasons might not have had any stakes to them. Mm-hmm. Like the Wildberries versus the Kingsmen was a fun whatever match, but now that might be the match that this team needs that win to win the whole league. It could come down to 1 point. It could come down to one match that these like middle of the road matches might be the difference between winning the league and not winning the league.
Yeah,
that's very
kind of crazy.
Throw another thing in there. I'm kind of interested to see what the Duke does to storylines.
Yeah.
Because it's all of a sudden you're getting more and more into this.
And also bringing characters together. It's going to be really hard to fit certain characters with each other. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder if managers will take that into play, or if characters will be making rapid changes this season. I think that's also a possibility. It's like where people will have to change who they are to fit where they are. Kind of
makes sense.
I mean, there's already like speculation from it. I mean, obviously, like yourself, you're not protected. So, like, do you end up back with the dungeon? Do you end up somewhere else? Someone like Mike Kalinowski is not. He's not guaranteed to go to Shannon. Like,
no.
Does he go to
He's almost guaranteed to not go to her if people are smart in terms of bargaining and, stuff like that.
Bargaining, speculation, past loyalty, does that still play in?
And that's what interesting too, is like, because that, he wants to play for Shannon, obviously. And I mean, the managers take that into account. Like, I don't want to draft Mike because he's not going to want to work with me. He wants to work with Shannon.
Or, I mean, if you're just smart, just draft him and then trade him to Shannon. For more assets for the person who you already wanted plus more. Like that's just sports draft logic. Like you trade out of someone you don't care for someone that you like, and maybe someone pulls a Phillip Rivers and refuses to play for a team, or maybe people don't.
It's very true.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that could come out of it. That's what's so great about the Nuke, I think, versus Anarchy. Anarchy was really cool when they announced the teams. And then it fell kind of back into like it's a tournament. Like you have new teams, but it's a tournament.
Right.
I agree.
Out of that, we got really great teams, but in the long run, that was it.
And only half of them or so stayed together anyway. So it's like
right. Very true. Very true.
I mean, things change very quickly.
I agree. Okay, I got a few more here. How about this Spam mac and cheese or tuna mac and cheese?
Oh Lord.
I mean. I love Spam, but probably neither. I don't know if either of those really fit. As a resident of Hawaii, I love Spam with all of my heart. Shout out to anyone who eats Spam. It is something that I grew up eating a lot. But, I mean, I think that's just you're doing too much with your mac and cheese. Tuna mac and cheese just sounds really – I'm out. I'm all the way out on that. And Spam, I'm not stoked about. I don't know if the flavors really work there.
But. You gotta slice it real thin, cube it up, and then fry it up, and then you kind of like almost like bacon. You put it on top of the mac and cheese, and it's super good.
Get it?
Maybe.
I prefer plain. I'm personally, I like don't mess with that mac and cheese. Just give me mac and cheese.
I did have some. So I went to Nashville for a formal in college, and there was this hot chicken mac and cheese that was like, oh man, that was next level. That was life changing. All my Nashville heads, Dylan Camacho and Abby Friel know exactly what I'm talking about. It's hot chicken in Nashville is something else.
Chicken Nashville. Oh,
Nashville.
And yes, Dwayne in the chat, Spam Musubi, that is my Lord and Savior. That is correct. Oh, also Jill also said that. So
yeah. Fair enough.
Absolutely.
Okay, I guess we will end with a question we always ask every week, and some people tend to be waiting to see where these guests are gonna fall on this one. Call to action host James Spence, that guy who's in the chat waiting this time, or a gaping chest wound.
How? Can I have 2 gaping chest wounds? Or I'm gonna go with that. I'm going with the latter. Yeah. I'll take a gaping foot wound, head wound. Just all the wounds.
Sanity has been restored. Sanity has been restored. I don't think James is happy. He'd been riding a high crazy while.
I do wonder if you have to redo this segment to make something even worse, to where people will actually choose the alternative.
Not happy, but I'll take it.
There are some people who chose James Spence.
Really?
My
wow. Are they all named James Spence, or are they his alt accounts?
Chandru, I think, picked James Spence because he's just such a nice person. And
wow.
He likes that.
William Bibiani wanted James Spence with a gaping chest wound, which is my favorite.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Although that seems a little hard. That seems like you really don't want James Spence if you want him to have the gaping chest wound. So I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's funny. You talk about gaping chest wounds. I just watched The Thing, and I'm just thinking about James Spence popping out of someone's chest wound, extending out, and it's a horrifying thought in my head.
Wow.
I'm going to do that every time we ask this question now.
Oh Lord.
Well, that will end me there.
You have been blessed.
That on this one. Jake's late for the chat. You just missed it, Jake. You just missed it. We went with a gaping chest wound, a gaping head wound, a gaping foot wound,
and any gaping wound that you have to offer.
He would take 2 gaping chest wounds, kind of placed thusly.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Well, you all know what that means. This or that is over. So make sure that you all get your questions down in the chat. If there's anything that we missed up ahead with it, make sure you send them back in the chat. Hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed to the channel yet. Guys, plug anything else that you'd like to plug right now while we wait for these chat questions.
Okay.
You guys mentioned my letterbox, but if you are curious about my potentially troublesome amount of movie watching, you're more than welcome to just search my first and last name on there, and you will see that I believe I am now at 713 movies watched in the year of 2019. So I might have to check into a therapist, but if you are curious about what those 712 or so are, then you are more than welcome to check that out.
Are all of these new movies to you?
Not necessarily. No, I think that about a third, or somewhere between a third and a half, are rewatches. I think, but just movies in total. Yeah, I like them quite a bit, as some people might know.
Nerd.
That is true. I am a nerd.
What's the best movie of the 713 that you watched this year?
Oh my god! I mean, I've watched Network this year, so it's probably that. It's probably Network, which is my favorite movie. I think I've watched all of my favorite movies at least once this year. So it's probably that. I mean, there's been a lot of great stuff. I mentioned Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That is probably in contention for my favorite, probably my second favorite movie of 2019. So that is a recent one that stuck out to me a lot. But there's a lot of great stuff out there,
Cats. It's clearly Cats.
Obviously.
I haven't seen Cats yet, but it will be. Trust me.
Maybe for different reasons, but it will be.
The Rise of Skywalker. I'm assuming you've seen that already.
I have seen that, yes. And my thoughts on that are posted there if you would like to read them. So.
Oh, all right. Go to your letterbox.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we're going to start with some questions from the Facebook pages. Make sure that you subscribe to our Facebook channel, the Call to Action podcast, so you can submit some of these questions. I usually send out that post to each of the groups also, so you can add any questions that you'd like in there as well. So first question that's in there is from K.M. Franklin, but you already answered this question. It's what movies did he see in LA Spectacular Weekend before heading home? You already answered that with the 4 movies that you saw.
I also watched a few of them on my own time. I watched The Squid and the Whale and Easy A, but yeah. So.
Ooh, I like Easy A.
Easy A is a great movie. I don't care what anybody says. I love that movie.
Danie Cost, friend and co-host of the Call to Action podcast. Where does Parasite and Columbus rank in the best movies of the decade? As a maniac that I am compiling a list of my 100 favorite movies of the 2010s. Let's just say that those both rank quite high on that list. Parasite is my favorite movie of 2019. Very cool. K.M. Franklin again. If studying film in college introduced him to a film or genre he fell in love with, whether it's a wheel slice or not, what else did he learn from that experience of studying film?
Most of that stuff that I studied will never be asked about. I developed a love for French slapstick from the 50s and 60s, which is a very random and niche thing. There's a filmmaker called Jacques Tati that I became a great fan of. There was a lot of I focused a lot on African and European cinema in my time in college for the most part. So I think that opened my eyes to sort of different genres and filmmakers that I don't think that I would have known as well. Otherwise, I took an entire class on Spike Lee. He became one of my favorite filmmakers. And there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I feel like that's where I learned almost everything that I have to learn about movies. Really, freshman year of college is when I started watching movies at the clip that I currently watch them, which is probably quite insane. But I mean, almost everything under the sun, quite frankly, in terms of stuff that I've loved. Yeah.
Very cool.
Have you seen The Man with One Red Shoe, the French film?
Sorry, what was that?
Have you seen The Man with One Red Shoe?
Yes.
The French.
Yes. I saw that senior year of high school. I do have to rewatch it just because I don't really remember as much from it as I would like to. But it's also tough because that won't be asked about, and sometimes you got to prioritize, slow down, study it.
That's what they say.
So another question from the Facebook group from Darth Camacho himself, our supreme leader, Mr. Dylan Camacho. What should the punishment be for people who don't wash their hands in the bathroom?
Oh man, dude, that happened at Spectacular like 3 times. That might even be what he's referencing. I think he might have been in there when some dude came in and used the bathroom and didn't wash his hands. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe like laying down on the ground floor of the bathroom for like 10 minutes. I don't know. It's just like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what are you doing to yourself?
Right. And other people at that point.
It's just,
the ratio,
I mean, especially other people, but like, what are we like? No.
The ratio of the line for the men's restroom to the women's restroom was hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Full line, guys. No line at all for the ladies.
Never been that way ever before. And
I know that's never happened.
See guys trying to sneak into the ladies' room. So yeah, what are you doing, dude?
No,
also, the bathroom was in a bank vault, so that is another interesting wrinkle of Spectacular.
Cool. Yeah. Last question from the Call to Action Facebook page from Mr. James Spence. Is there anyone from the fan leagues that you would like to see be called up?
Ooh, that's tough. Selfishly, no one good because that would make more competition for myself.
Don't worry, there isn't anybody good in the
fans. It's tough because I think locale does matter. Like my old partner Michael, who's one of my great friends in the world, really lives in the Gold Coast in Australia. I don't think he's going to be flying regularly to compete in matches, and I think there are other people that I would love to see compete. Jeremy Adams, who's like now a question writer for the Showdown, I would love to see play, but also he writes, and I don't think that becomes a little complicated. Jen Kemp, who's another like good friend of mine, she debuted at Free For All and then hasn't played since then. I would like to see her get an actual match. Sort of long time Schmo's queen. Yeah, so she was as of that post. You never know. He took it down, so maybe he's making some edits to that list.
Sullivan better be draft. better me in the draft.
I mean, there are people that I think are good enough to play, but it's just hard because not so many of them don't live far away or just wouldn't be able to make that trip regularly. So I think it's a tough and somewhat complicated question, I guess, in that regard.
I do have one.
Sorry, it's kind of a bad answer for all the family people. Like there are tons of family people I really like, but I just don't know if it's realistic, So I guess Jake and Michael, two of my best friends, I would love to see them, but again, they both live in Australia, so kind of tough.
Australia's got some good fans of the Schmodown. We love Asari over here also.
Right, sorry.
I do have one more question from Danie Coast. Danny Cost. I'm sorry, Danny. Jawbreakers or Heathers?
Jawbreakers did win me a number 1 contenders match in the fan league, so I do have great fondness for that and for that era of Rose McGowan, but I would definitely have to go with Heathers. I think Heathers is just endlessly fun and quotable. That's a movie that it bums me out. The Schmodown has made this sort of shift to being PG because now there are certain quotes from that movie I would love to be asked about that will never, ever be asked about, one including a chainsaw that some people may or may not be familiar with.
Yes, that would not be more probably, unfortunately. Maybe we should have an exhibition matches of you can have an R-rated exhibition matches or something like that.
Man, I'm sure plenty of people would love to participate in those.
All right, we got some questions for the chat now. Garth McMurray asks, how does Paul feel about the Fassbender and Fassbender?
That is the best scene in Alien Covenant. Fassbender is amazing. He's great in everything, even if the movie is bad. I wish he would be in more things, specifically more good things, like he was from 2008 to 2013. And then he's like, good movies. I'm going to stop doing that. But I do love Fassbender, and that is a great scene. It's much better than the waste of Catherine Waterston, but that is another thing to litigate for another day.
I would agree and be on that side as well. This isn't really a question, but an interesting comment from Louis Cerisa. Alt Universe, where Paul and Chance were teammates in Anarchy. How do you feel about that?
It's funny. We were supposed to be teammates in fandom, which is like the fan league inner geekdom sort of thing. And then he got called up. I do think that would be interesting. I worry a bit about if we would just have so much overlap in terms of what we don't know, and I think that might hurt us. I still think we would be an incredible team, and that might happen one day. I think it's more likely than not that it would eventually happen at some point, but I mean, it would be interesting. Like me and him have both talked about it before, but maybe you never know.
Okay. Speaking of Saudi, as one of the OG Action Army members, where do you stand with Warrior?
Man, I was hoping you would not ask this question because despite the fact that I own this movie, I have not watched it yet. So, yeah, that's right.
Welcome to my club. I have to deal with this all the time.
That's right.
I say I haven't seen
That's
Warrior.
right. Oh, and the thing was, I just want to make this very clear. I was planning on waiting to see it in theaters when I was in Indiana visiting friends during Halloween. But then it turns out one of my friends had a situation and I had to miss the showing of the movie in theaters, which is what I was waiting for. So now I might just watch it on my own time. I was really waiting to experience it in fullness in that big theater with all the great speakers, but it didn't happen. So we'll see. I guess I just got to watch it on my TV now, which is a bit of a bummer. But I'm excited. Like I think some people have great shame in not having seen stuff. I just think it's super exciting to have a new movie to watch. I think that's pretty cool. So
especially a great movie like that. I'll be honest with you. I love it.
Very nice. Don't believe the Action Army's promises when they say that we'll watch them all when we all get together, because it just never happens.
That is fun.
Like 4 times and it's never happened.
At least 2 or 3 times we've said we're going to watch it when we all get together for Schmodown, but we're just too much busy drinking. And
that's really the correct answer.
Shocking. Some of us are busy drinking.
Kayla wants to know the biggest difference. I think you mentioned this before, but the biggest difference in gaming and studying and strategy between families and Schmodown.
I think depth is part of it. I think that in the Schmodown, certain movies, the only thing ever asked about will be director, lead, co-lead, and maybe release date. Maybe like they'll describe the movie generally. But for a lot of family movies, you have to, like, if you're studying for a specific strength or a specific category, you have to know the 5th, 6th, 7th actor, plot related things. What's the name of that device they're looking for? Like, that stuff is a little you have to go, I think, a little deeper with that stuff. With the Shimodan, you have to cast a wider net because you don't want to be caught in a position where it's an easy question, but it's just a movie that you are not aware of, that's not on your radar. So it's a little wider, but not as deep. I guess that's some of the stuff. With strategy, it's hard. It's a little harder just because in the fan leagues, there's so many things you can pick that it's easy to pick something your opponent's not good at. Like it's easy to find something that it's like, oh, this guy's never seen these movies or has never watched this or never seen that. But in the Shimodan, it's like, for one thing, like a lot of these people have seen every damn thing to ever come out. But I think also it's you're limited in what you can choose, and there's less variability with strengths and that kind of thing. So it's just a different preparation process altogether. And I think in the Shimodan, it's there's less categories than they're on the wheel for certain fan league matches and stuff. So it's different in a lot of ways, more than I could probably even summate in a few minutes.
Fair enough. All right, Megs has no question, but wanted to shout you out saying you had an amazing first year run.
Thank you very much. Hopefully the second year is about as good, if not better, but we shall see. Maybe teams will be a different story for me this year too. So let's see.
Have you seen the Fighting Sullivans? Haskell wants to know.
I have not seen the Fighting Sullivans, no, unfortunately.
As another one I have missed as well. I did hear about. I know that was the basis, but I love Saving Private Ryan, so I will go there. Let's see.
That makes one of us.
Oh, really? Oh,
there's it is not my I'll just say it's not my 1998 World War II movie of choice. That is. I'll leave it at that.
Red Line.
Right. And Life is Beautiful, but yeah.
And
it's not my favorite. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, Robert Parker has a good question now. What has been the most helpful part of being managed by Kaiser? Mic skills, strategy, in gameplay, training, something else?
I think it's really, I mean, it's not to be lame, but I think it's all of those things. I think if he was lacking in any of those areas, I think that would really be tough. I do think there's definitely like just a big weight off my shoulders in terms of having someone in my corner that is vocal, that will be there, that will be a presence and won't be sort of shut out by other people saying certain stuff. And that's been great. Also, having a place to stay might be the best thing, so I can know that I can come to LA and be able to make it to my match. No, but I mean, he helps me prepare, I think, more than other people realize. And I mean, Kevin's been a huge help too. Kevin and Eric, especially, like those people are sort of secondary managers in a way where I think we all help each other in ways that I don't think I'm not going to necessarily elaborate on. But it's like there's a lot of things that those guys help me with that I think goes a little under the radar.
Kevin walked you out at the against Schneider, so
yeah, and he was my manager. He was the one in my ear. He was helping me sort of throughout that entire thing and calming me down. And I think that he was a big reason I won that match. So I just want to say, like, I'm over the moon excited for him. Like, as bad as that night was for me, I couldn't be happier for someone to work so hard and to see it pay off in that fashion was such an exhilarating thing. And I'm just so happy for him just because I know he came so close and that was just so agonizing for him. And I saw what it was like for him after that. And I'm just so stoked that he got to get that and that he got to clinch the fact that he would be with Kaiser again. Because if he didn't win that match, like, there's a good chance he gets snapped up in round 1 or 2 by someone else. And I think everyone knows them well enough to know that regardless of what you think his value is, Kaiser is not letting Smets go anywhere. They are inextricably linked in ways that I think people will never really grasp. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Garth McCrory wants to know, what are some movies that you've hated to watch but had to for the Schmodown?
Ooh.
Everybody has a few of them.
Yeah. I'm pretty open to watching almost anything in general. So there's not really a lot of stuff that I would never have watched, but the Schmodown made me watch. There's definitely bad movies that I've watched because I'm like, well, like will probably be asked about in the Schmodown, but I don't like, I can't really say that there's anything that I particularly detested that I watched only because of the Schmodown. There are movies that I'm like, this is not very good, but I see a lot of movies that are not very good all the time. So and honestly, in a weird way, watching a bad movie is kind of a relief because then that just means I'm more excited for the next thing and I can see what worked and what didn't work. And that's just kind of how my mind works. So.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. Louis Cerisa, if Pauly Shore movies still a category they can put on the wheel.
Fun fact, I inquired about this when I was going to play against Dan Merle. But I found out that it was not currently in circulation. I don't know if that will change. But that was something that I was like, I wonder if I just put this on and watch all of his movies. Like, there's no way that Dan is just casually watching Pauly Shore. So I was like, well, this would be a great idea. And then it turns out it was not eligible. So it is what it is.
Fair enough.
Need more son-in-law questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, this is not because of the Schmodown, but there is, what was the name of that movie? I watched a Pauly Shore movie where he plays this bank robber who gives the money back and then falls in love with the cop that was chasing him.
I know which one you're talking about.
Curse of Inferno. Yeah, Curse of Inferno. It was Drek. That was pure Drek. I didn't watch it for the Schmodown, but I just watched it because I was like, oh, maybe this will be at Pauly Shore, and it was, oh man, that's one of the worst movies I've seen in a long time.
Here's an interesting comment from the Schmodown Entertainment Network. I wonder who that could be.
Hi, Bob.
It is the goods.
They may or may not have given me the password, and I may be logged into that account right now, gassing myself up. But no, I do appreciate the encouragement from up on high.
Up on high, always looking down.
Yeah.
All right, Louis Cerise, all good. How does it feel to be a member of the OG Action Army to have won a belt before either member of Team Action?
And don't you forget it. No, but I mean, it's kind of crazy just because they were, especially Ben was orbiting that for so long, and it's kind of hilarious that I'm the one who was able to, I suppose, deliver that to him in a way. But no, it's crazy. There's so many players that I'm like, wow, like I really want a belt before Lon Harris. That's pretty insane. Like that kind of blows my mind. Like before Ben, before like a bunch, like it's kind of wild to be honest. Like there's, yeah, I don't know. It's surreal and it's pretty cool.
Christian was talking about Billy. Fair enough. Fair enough about that.
Of course.
Let's see, anything else we got? Oh, what about us? Wheel slays for Just Ernest movies.
I did watch the Ernest Christmas special about a week ago. And, you know, one of my friends, Matt Queller's great fondness for Ernest, and that's by proxy sort of made me sort of a fan. But, I mean, that's something that the Fan Leagues allows to be a possibility. Well, I guess they're not all theatrically released, so not really. But I think the first one definitely was. Maybe two more. I'm not sure. But
Go to Camp was as well, actually.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
I know my Ernest movies.
In the Bateman match, were you a little perturbed at the difficulty difference between round two?
I assume he means Ben's.
Yeah, I'm assuming he means Ben's too. Yeah. All classics was all plot versus.
It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't all plot. Like the Humphrey Bogart Lauren Bacall one was just. I guess the other three were plot. I mean, it was a little frustrating. I do feel like the Julia Roberts questions were pretty easy, but that's just how the Schmodown works.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you can think of any match where it's like, oh man, those round twos were exactly perfectly aligned. Like everything was even and fair. Like that's just not how it works. So it's frustrating. And it's like, I think it's so interesting that if you flip the categories, I think the score might not exactly be flipped, but I think it's pretty close to flipped after round two. But it's like one of those cases where that's how the game works. Like you can't, I think it's kind of a little silly to complain about that when that's happened to me before too, where I've gotten questions that weren't that hard and my opponent's gotten hard questions. So, you know, stuff like that happens.
I think fans have to start realizing that a little bit too, not pointing anything out to Tony who said that. Because I know, like, for example, Ben Bateman himself said that happened to him when he was facing Kalinowski.
I mean, Mike's thriller questions were like, here's 8 points, sir. Like it's a little much, but like, you know, that happens sometimes. And it is frustrating, like 100%. But also, it's not something that I can really bemoan too much because everyone. It's a seesaw, and things will happen.
It's got to even itself out over time. You're going to have something that are good.
And honestly, it's like I don't think Ben would consider Julia Roberts a particular strength of his, and I do consider classics something that I know a lot about. So it's like I should know plot question, like I should know Vienna. Like that's a thing where I just messed up. Yeah.
I have a question also. How do you feel about older questions being recycled back into the next season?
I mean, I think it benefits me a lot. I've watched this game for a long time. I've watched all of the matches many times. So we will see. It is a bit frustrating because I always loved the fact that I was always ready to challenge when someone was asked something they've been asked before.
Nice.
I remember a specific instance where Mark Andreyko was asked a question about Heather Graham and The Hangover, and I was like, wait, he was asked this in the free-for-all. Is this fair that he gets asked this again? But then again, I got Who Directed RoboCop twice in like a month and a half. I think that's just a natural thing where it's like eventually they feel like they need to recycle questions. I do hope that that's not the case in round 2, because I think that in round 2 that's so much easier to remember, and that becomes a little more difficult. But I think especially round 1 questions, I think that's totally fair. Like those questions are not all supposed to be that hard anyway. So I just think I honestly think it'll benefit me and students of the game a lot more than people realize.
I want to say I would have predicted that would have been your answer, because you and people like Ben are always looking for that advantage. I feel like any way you can get an advantage is going to be good for you. And that's the way it should be. That's why it's like a sport type thing. If you can get an advantage some way because you watched the Showdown before, then absolutely you got to take advantage of it.
Yep.
Back to the whole debate of spinners versus opponent's choice being on the wheel. You got to take advantage of whatever you can do to keep that.
You'll notice it was on there again against Ben, and I have no shame in that. And that is, if that is a rule, it is a rule that I will be using myself.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's what you got to go with.
I think it's really interesting. You are actually like such a student of the game that you either like know things that other people don't know about the game. Like you put Harry Potter on the wheel against Schneider.
Yeah.
And like Rachel Cushing said on SEN Live that like she didn't even know that was allowed. Like she thought that was in her.
Well, if you watch, I mean, Dan's put Star Trek on the wheel, and Ethan put Star Trek on the wheel against Dan. It's like it's not an accident. Like that, I didn't just pull that out of nowhere. It was only because it had been done before previously, and I was like, well, if they've done it before, I don't see why me as the defending champion should not be allowed to do that. And Jeff has made it so glaringly obvious that he does it. There was a question, name the 6th movie, and he said, who effing cares? It's like, you're just asking me to put it on the wheel.
Absolutely. It's a student of the game. That's what you got to do. Late to the party here. Hi, guys. We love you guys. It's a great video. The yes to more son-in-law and Pauly Shore questions, and I would wholeheartedly agree. We shouldn't have any prejudice against those types of movies. We love them. And also in honor, I saw Brian Fernandez have one I just lost. But in honor of Rise of Skywalker, let's throw it out there. Name your top 5 Star Wars movies.
Well, my favorite kind of waffles a lot. I do think as of right now, it's Last Jedi for me as my favorite. Empire is really close. And then after that, it gets a little muddy, but I think it would be some mixture of Rogue One, New Hope, and probably Force Awakens. Those are that, I guess, off the top of my head, I think that's it.
Fair enough.
Fair.
I got one more question, but beyond that, also Robert wants to note that it was interesting that you don't ever reveal your answer if you miss. I like that too. I've always noticed that myself. Hide those weaknesses. I like that idea.
I mean, yeah, I if it's a silly answer, like why would I show it?
Exactly.
And maybe people don't know that I was close or had no idea. Like that's why it's more information.
And that's why it has to do.
But also, Robert, thanks for pointing that out. Now people know that. You dummy. You dummy.
Well, he's a spider. You can't trust him. He's a spider.
No.
It's a similar thing to why Ben does that 5. Like always waits to the end. He doesn't want people to know whether he knows or not. It's not just a dick move. Although now
it is a dick. It is a dick move. Also, but yeah.
But I think that was the initial thing about not letting people know what he knows and what he doesn't know. Yeah. So last question here, I'll throw that because we have to wrap up. We're getting close to your time. Late to the party wants to know what movie can you quote the majority of without thinking about. I love that.
A Good Will Hunting is a big one, I think. No, not Saving Private Ryan. That is certainly not.
Not Saving Private Ryan.
I mean, I think there's a lot. I think Good Will Hunting is one. Heat is one for me. Robin Holiday is one for me as well. That's one of my favorites. I think there's a lot. I guess nothing else really jumps to mind, and I think that's The Graduate is also one that I've watched that movie probably 40, 50 times.
Network?
I mean, I love Network, and I think it's incredible, but there's a lot of heady stuff that I can't necessarily quote from it. It's not that kind of movie for me. Right. It's not a movie I watch over and over again. It's just my favorite movie, which I think might be different from some people in terms of what they understand favorite movie to be. But yeah, I mean, those are just the ones that immediately come to mind. I'm sure there are others that I love in and we'll be like, oh, how did I not say? I mean, Dazed and Confused and Everybody Wants Them those are also two big ones. But like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, y'all, we're gonna wrap this up. Happy Sunday. Thank you all for everyone in the chat coming in and hanging out. Make sure that you hit that like button on this video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that bell. All of us here at the Call to Action podcast put on wonderful shows, and we want you all to be a part of it, hanging out with us in the live chat. So make sure you hit that bell so you get notified whenever we get into something. Before we leave, Mr. Oyama, you want to plug anything? You got to go?
I do want to answer one last question from the chat. Abby asks, what is my favorite Christmas movie? It is a movie called Tokyo Godfathers, which I would highly recommend people to check out. It's a Japanese animated movie that is incredible and moving and makes me cry every year at Christmas. It is an astounding movie that I love so much. And thank you guys so much for having me on. We'll see what next season has in store with the draft and, whatever potential matches I have coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh, Notorious Champ by Chance is here. Deuces.
Hi, Chance.
And that's what I want to say. I also want to say, Abby, I'm sorry I missed your question. I scrolled through. Sometimes I miss them. Sorry I don't. Anyway, I'd like to say also, while we're here, go join the Patreon for the Schmodown. We all want to salute. We want to support this brand we love. Also, go join the support the Team Action Patreon, because that's what employs me. So keep me employed, and we have a lot of great content, including behind the scenes. We just had a video with Ben and Roxy going behind the scenes at the spectacular. Very, very in-depth, very fun episode to watch. And of course, next week I believe Chill is going to take a week off for the holidays, but we have a lot of stuff.
Well deserved, well earned, and well deserved.
Thank you. We have been going pretty much nonstop. It's our 13, 14 episode now, but I know, Billy, I know. But we're going to take one week off before we go on. But I also want to plug later on tonight, we're going to have a special Call to Action episode, our Call to Action. I'm going to go live talking about the spectacular, maybe mention the draft, that kind of thing. So if you are going to stick around, look out for that.
Yep. Belford, where can we find you at?
At Mr. Billy Belford on Twitter. That's it.
Y'all know where you can find me, at Danie Joy. We're getting out of here, y'all. Thank you so much for coming in. Happy chill, y'all. We'll see y'all later.
All right, and we...